Well, hello and welcome to Outdoor Oklahoma. I'm Todd Craighead. Springtime is an exciting time in Oklahoma. With the warmer temperatures and longer days, well, they just seem to usher in a whole host of changes. And for the outdoor enthusiast, well, it can seem like everything's happening at once. The sand bass are running, crappie are spawning, and turkeys are gobbling. But for some, the most anticipated spring event is the appearance of the morel mushroom. Morels are considered to be by many one of the greatest wild-growing edible delicacies. In fact, it's likely that you drive by some each spring. That's because morels naturally occur all over our state. And with a sharpened sense of what to look for, it won't take you long to fill a basket yourself. So to help you enjoy morels this spring, we're going to introduce you to mushroom enthusiast and hunter extraordinaire, Marty Lee.
My name is Marty Lee. I've been an outdoors person my whole life, and that's 50 plus years, and I was taught to hunt morels as a small child, so it's possible that I've been doing it for almost 50 years. I think that morel mushrooms are very special because they're very delicious to eat. Number one, but number two, they're special because they only come up during a really small window early in the spring, usually 3 or 4 weeks in the spring, and the morels are gone. It gets too hot and they stop fruiting. So you have a very limited time frame to go out and find them, and that makes them extra special. One of the things that I look for when I'm looking for likely places are little drainages like this with the hillside. There's a couple more right here. When you find one, you should always search really good. When you're out hunting for morels and you're looking, scanning the leaves, they're going to be very difficult to find. But when you find one, you should always stop, don't move, and look around, because morels are gregarious. Where there's one, there are typically more. And where there is one, it implies that that's a spot where they're more likely to be than other spots. The conditions that make one grow are going to make several of them grow in that particular area. I haven't seen any more yet. There may not be any more, but we'll check this area pretty good before we leave. This slope right here is perfect because it's south facing. It's going to warm up first in the spring, and there's one right there behind your boot. I either cut them or pinch them. I don't pull them up because I don't want to deal with the dirt. There's also some controversy among the morel enthusiasts, whether you should rip them out of the ground or cut them off or pinch them off. Personally, I either cut them or pinch them. The presumption is that if you rip them out of the ground, you're damaging the mycelium, the body of the mushroom that's going to provide you mushrooms year after year. You're damaging that under the ground. When you rip out a mushroom by the roots, I personally don't feel that that's so important. But what I don't like about pulling them out of the ground is that if I leave that dirt on there and put it in my sack or my basket, I've got dirt in with my morels, and it causes all the morels to get dirt on them, and it just requires more cleaning when you get back to your kitchen. Morels have associations with lots of different trees. I would go to those trees that I know are, in general, hosts for morels. Elms, hackberries, cottonwoods, ashes. In east of I-35, sycamores. In northeast Oklahoma, I focus my efforts mainly on sycamore trees. And I rarely find them elsewhere where there's not a sycamore tree. If you find one, there's going to be a sycamore tree somewhere within 20 feet. This elm is damaged. You can see the bark peeling back here. It may just be this one limb. In particular, dying trees and or damaged trees, because it's important to remember that the body of the morel mushroom actually lives under the ground in a web of mycelia. This entire area could be covered with morel mycelia, and one of the things that mushroom mycelia feed off of is those dying trees, and that new source of nutrients. And so the mushroom starts feeding on those dying roots, and consumes those roots. And a lot of times with a particular dying tree, maybe for a couple of years, the morels will fruit incredibly around that tree. And I've found flushes of morels for a couple of years around a particular tree, and then nothing, they're gone. Now, it's very possible that the mycelia are still there in the ground, but there's not enough nutrients to support the fruiting of the morel, which is the part that we like to harvest and eat. Assuming we have plenty of rain and temperatures are warming up into the 60s and 70s during the day, but it's probably most important that we have warm nights. The average ground temperature when morels start fruiting is from 45 to 50 degrees. And typically that's when they'll start fruiting. There are websites you can look on the Oklahoma Mesonet, and they have a graph of the entire state with ground temperatures at each of their polling stations. Here in Oklahoma, in southern Oklahoma, morels can start as early as the middle of March, and a couple of weeks later, by the end of March, first part of April here in central Oklahoma, they'll be coming on. By mid-April in northern Oklahoma, and on through April and May, up through Kansas, and continuing on up. Last year I found over 100 right here in this little 10-yard by 10-yard clump of trees. These are little damaged elms, and they were just in here thick. I'd never found them right here before, and there may not be any here this year either, but we'll have to check it really good. A lot of people that are new to morel mushroom hunting and ask me questions, where should I go look? And, my vague answer is, well, just go outside and start looking. They can theoretically be anywhere. You can find them in your backyard. You can find them at the city park. You can find them at your near your favorite swimming hole. If you know of an area where a lot of trees have been damaged by a storm, and it could be tornado, high winds, or ice storms, and they will flush around those damaged trees. Typically not that year, but maybe the next year. Same thing for a burn. If you have a friend or a colleague at work that you know does it and has some experience and is willing to take you out and share their potentially secret spots with you, I think that's the best way for someone to be introduced. A person new to morel mushroom hunting could potentially wander around in the woods for 2 or 3 days without finding anything, just because they may be unfamiliar with the particular kinds of habitats that morels like. And someone with more experience can look at the landscape in the woods or near a creek and say, right over there is potentially a good spot. I think if anyone is interested in getting out, the most important thing to remember is that it's great to get out and enjoy nature and poke around in the woods. There's no telling what you may find. You may find a shed white-tailed deer antler. You may find a turtle that's just come out of hibernation. In the early spring, the plants are budding and starting to grow. Flowers are going to be coming on in the woods. The insects and animals are going to be coming alive. And even if you don't find any mushrooms, there's no telling what you might be able to enjoy in the outdoors.
Fortunately, morels are a pretty unique looking mushroom because certainly not all mushrooms are edible. So be sure to research the internet or any other host of resources so that you can correctly identify morels. Also, since Oklahoma is more than 95% private property, always make sure you have permission and/or that it's legal to pick them. You know, the first time that I really discovered morels for myself was on a turkey hunting trip many years ago. The buddy I was with happened to spot a bunch and he got all excited and he told me to fill my turkey hunting vest with them. And we were camping out, and so later that night he prepared them and made me a ham and cheese and morel mushroom omelet. And I don't know if it was just the campfire or the fact that we had picked them ourselves, but I got to tell you, that was the best omelet I'd ever had in my life. And I've been hooked ever since. And now for me, turkey hunting is just as much about looking for morels as it is listening for gobbles. And I really can't think of a better way to celebrate spring than combining the two in the kitchen. And to help us do just that, we're going to introduce you to Curtis and Gay Ann Grace, who just happen to be the parents of our Kay County Game Warden, Spencer Grace.
You know, we always think of the beautiful springtime with when the red buds bud, the sand bass run, it's turkey season, and you find those wonderful morel mushrooms. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to braid our bacon. This is Hickory Smoked thick sliced bacon. You'll start with 6 pieces on the bottom, and then we'll end up weaving them all together to give us the braided look. I like to put mine kind of close together, and that way when they do cook and they shrink up, that it looks very, very nice. Very, very nice presentation. And you can also try this with maple flavored bacon or peppered bacon, the different varieties. This piece of paper underneath is called parchment paper, and we like to cook on parchment paper because it can collect the juices during the baking process, and then you can rebase those juices on top of your meat to keep it moist and flavorful, and plus it has a nice shine to it at the end. So there is our our braid. And now what we have to do is we have to use some cooking twine that can be purchased. And we're going to cut 3 strips of these, about the width of your parchment paper. Okay. And then we're going to lay those across the bacon braid. Now to get that reversed, we just put a second piece of parchment paper over the top of it, and I'm going to press that down a little bit, because I'm going to take this and I'm just going to flip it over, and that way my cooking string is on the bottom and my bacon braid is on the top. And press it out, peel your parchment paper. Get the, this is the wild turkey breast that has been from the field and put in the freezer and unthawed, and now he's going to take it and prepare it for our delicious entree here.
Now this is actually a half of a turkey breast, so if you want to do the same thing, and most folks when they shoot a wild turkey, they either have it plucked or they will de-breast it in 2 pieces like this one. We're going to take this Carter knife, we're going to flatten this out, will fit in and around this bacon. So just, if you have one at home, most men use it for putting in steaks. We get this meat flattened out, tenderized. I think we're about ready to do this.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to place that meat over there to see how it kind of forms into the square. Now, I'm going to put the seasonings on there, huh?
So we're going to take some Head Country seasoning and some Penzey's 4S seasoning, and we're going to sprinkle them on the top of the meat, and add a little bit of the Penzey's 4S. So we've got our wild mushrooms, morel mushrooms, we've got our sweet onions, and we have the bacon braided, and we have the wild turkey breast on top of there, seasoned with a little bit of Head Country and 4S seasoning. And now we're ready to place this on top. So what Curtis and I like to do is we also like to add a little bit more seasoning on top and sprinkle. So I'm going to add a little bit more Head Country, sprinkle it on top, and a little bit more 4S. And now we have it, and it's ready to be folded and then tied and then placed in our Dutch oven. You're going to let the parchment paper work with you whenever you're using parchment paper to bake with, or even when you're using it to do breads, roll out your breads. Folding it over. That was a fast move, force of gravity here. Now I'm going to let Curtis, he's going to tie him. You don't want to tie him real tight because it is going to be cooking while the meat's cooking. The strings are going to be holding it together. Very good. So now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to place it inside of the Dutch oven. And I put the parchment paper in there with it, and so that as it cooks, those juices collect in there and we can rebaste it. I'm going to carry it into there so you can see. Dutch oven. We want to take the kitchen scissors and we want to clip the excess parchment paper away. Now whether you're doing this in a household kitchen or if you're doing it outdoors, it works the same way. Fits into nicely into a 12-inch Dutch oven as well. This will cook at 350 degrees and you want it to reach 165 internal temp, which takes about an hour and a half for that to happen. Now we're going to venture into the oven and check on the one that we had made prior to the filming. Oh my, if only you could smell this through the cameras. Oh, delicious. And we're gonna slosh up some of that nice broth coming off of that turkey and put it on the top. Oh boy, it looks delicious. I'm gonna go ahead and take a temp reading. This one has been in the oven for approximately 45 minutes. It has reached temp, and so what we're going to do is leave the lid off and we're going to get the bacon a little crispy, and so we'll return it to the oven for a short time. We fixed some bacon-braided stuffed wild turkey breast. We stuffed it with some sweet onion and some morel mushrooms. Oh wow, look at that. If only the camera, you could smell through those cameras.
Well, I didn't find any morels today, but I did hear a gobbler, so that must mean it won't be long now. Hey, however you choose to enjoy springtime in Oklahoma, keep a lookout for morels. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. And for your convenience, we've put the Grace's recipe of bacon-braided wild turkey breast on our website, wildlifedepartment.com. From the hunting tab, go to turkey and then to cooking your bird. Hey, thanks for joining us. For all of us at your wildlife department, I'm Todd Craighead. We'll see you somewhere new next time on Outdoor Oklahoma.